Hello, my lovely. Well, to also give my opinion for what it's worth on this Essex police situation, which is just becoming so surreal, very, very surreal. Basically, because it's so in your face and obvious what's happened here. What the controversy is concerning is anti-migrant protests who were concerned about children and women were demonstrating outside the Bell Hotel in Epping. And Essex police, for some reason, thought it would be a good idea to actually take and bring pro-migrant protesters to the area. They literally transported them there to the area. Now, why that is a very questionable decision is because if you've got two opposing sides and you bring them together, you're increasing the likelihood that there'll be trouble. And so the Essex police went out of the way to join the two together so they could be seen as inflaming the situation or trying to get the situation inflamed so that, as the allegation will be made, it was to make the anti-migrant protesters look bad by goading them. Now, who started the trouble? I don't know. I haven't got a clue. I've heard it, both sides. I've heard one side saying that it was the pro-migrant protesters who started trouble, and I've heard that it was the anti-migrant protesters who started trouble, and I've heard people saying that it was a bit of both. I don't know. I wasn't there, so I can't say, but I've seen videos of what was going on. But you have to be careful with videos again, because you don't see the full events. You just don't see them, you just see clips of them. Anyway, that's actually irrelevant. The fact is, the Essex police can be seen as having set up that situation, managed that situation. Look, they have in law a concept called the line of causation, or the chain of causation, I've heard it called as well, where that if you want to see who is culpable for an act, you go back and examine how it originated or what set up that situation. It was a famous case last century, I think it was, where someone threw a firework into a crowd. The person that landed by panicked and they picked up, threw it. Landed by someone else, they picked up and threw it, and it exploded in someone's face and injured them. So they had to work out who was responsible, the person that threw it and it exploded in the person's face, or the person right at the beginning who threw the firework into the crowd. Well, they decided that the person who was guilty was the person who threw the firework first into the crowd. Because, but for the fact they did that, the event would never have happened where people were throwing it to get away from them, and people are going to naturally panic and throw things. So that's the line of causation. So, but for the fact that the Essex police escorted, and I've heard it saying that they transported these pro-migrant protesters to that meeting point, they actually made the situation volatile. Now, the Chief Constable, Ben-Julian Harrington, has been on, and he was asked the question, can they be seen as actually inflaming the situation? And he just doesn't answer the question. I would play it here, but there's no point. He doesn't answer the question. He just fuddles on and on and on and on, saying that it's only right that they should be, policing an event like that. There's a difference between policing an event and actually taking people to that event. And I can never remember any force where they actually trafficked protesters to a meeting point. Never. They may police the situation there, but they won't actually escort people. And what's even more damning for Essex Police and the Chief Constable is the fact that there's films showing some of these pro-migrant protesters going towards police vehicles saying, "Where's the bus?"
Buses. They're calling them buses. They're calling them buses.
They're getting bussed back to either the homes or a drop-off point by the police. Now, before everyone says, well, the police are doing that to keep the peace, which the Chief Constable's tried to say, right, to keep the peace and all this. Well, what about the anti-migrant protesters? Why weren't they bussing them around to keep the peace? Why only one side? It just stinks. Now, there's calls for, and I think it's quite right for Ben-Julian Harrington, the Chief Constable, to resign. There's definitely calls for it. But it won't only have been him that made that decision, but he's responsible for the force. This would have started with a meeting with the area commander. And there would have been some chief officer and assistant chief constable there, an ACC, who would have been involved in this. But ultimately, it's the chief constable has to take the flak if anything goes wrong. And I think this is a serious situation. Now, also, there have been calls for the PCC of Essex. And I've forgotten his name, but he's actually a fire commissioner as well. I didn't know they had the two together. Now they're saying he should resign. He may not have known about it for all we know. Now I looked at his site and I thought, is this ex-Labour or a Labour MP or councillor or whatever? But he's not, he's Conservative. Because if he'd been Labour, I would have said straight away, this is suspicious. This is very, very suspicious, but he isn't. But you see, the fact is that this is an example of what I've said for many, many years. The police are not, when we get told they police without fear and favour, which is what the mantra they love to use. Without fear or favour, they do police with a lot of fear and a lot of favour. They are, I'll say this, they're not two-tiered. They're not two-tiered. They are multi-tiered and always have been. Only now it's more in your face. And it's more obvious that they are. And this is what's frightening to me. If you go back, look, police trying to cause trouble at protests is not new. Go back to the Thatcher days and the miners' strikes. They used to put agent provocateurs, police officers in the crowds to stir up trouble. So it would look bad on the unions. But the Thatcher days, they tried to hide it. Now they don't even try to hide it. It's in your face. It's literally, here we are, we're doing this, we're being biased. And they don't care and they will lie through the teeth. Or like this Chief Constable, so just avoid the facts and avoid answering it. Just avoid it. But definitely there is a political mindset and ideology. Why does this exist? I've always said again, the problem you have is that we're told, oh, the police are not politically swayed. They are. And the reason they're politically swayed is because these chief officers are extremely competitive. And each one of them wants to get to the top of the police Christmas tree and be the little commissioner of the Met fairy at the top of the tree. That's the highest rank you can get to. You can't get any higher. And only one person at a time can have it, that position. Who holds the key to getting that position? Who gives that job out? I tell you who gives that job out. It's the Home Secretary. Who's the Home Secretary now? Labour. What is Labour? Well, they may say they are, but they are very, very pro-migrant. Very pro-migrant, and they are very left. And there's been examples of that. Remember the Southport riots when they kicked off? It was suddenly put about that it was the English Defence League that did it. Not only by the Prime Minister, but by the Chief Constable of Merseyside Police at the time, shamefully, Serena Kennedy, said that the EDL haven't been in existence for over 10 years. But so you can see where this political bias comes in. She was only saying that to please the Labour Party. But it looks like she's finished now herself for doing that. It's a dirty game. It's a dirty game. Politics and policing. Dirty game. And dirty bedfellows. So this could well be a case of Ben-Julian Harrington trying to impress the Home Office. So he'll be given the highest role, and he could have just hopefully he's messed up himself, because no matter what view you take, you can't have the police taking sides like that. Anyway, I've rattled on enough. So anyway, my lovelies, I shall leave at that until next time.